For nearly 80 years, the security of the Western world has rested on a single bargain. The United States provided a massive military umbrella, while allies aligned their policies with Washington's global objectives. That bargain is breaking down. The immediate catalyst is a dispute over funding, with President Trump announcing plans to pull 5,000 American troops out of Germany over the next 6 to 12 months. This transactional logic now applies to the war in Ukraine. Instead of seeking new congressional funding, the White House has introduced a system where the U.S. provides the hardware, like these Patriot missile systems, but European nations are required to pay the bill. By treating mutual defense as a series of financial invoices, the administration weakens the foundational trust required to maintain the alliance.
That friction reached a breaking point when the U.S. attempted to draw European allies into its military campaign against Iran, expecting them to provide support and launch points for attacks. The refusal was widespread. Allies like Spain and the UK expressed deep concern over the lack of a clear exit strategy, while German leader Friedrich Merz noted that Washington had been humiliated by its own lack of a coherent plan. The response from the White House was a threat to quit NATO entirely, leaving the 77-year-old alliance on the brink of total collapse. While the U.S. and its traditional allies are locked in this public dispute, China is leveraging the space created to advance its own long-term goals. With over 52,000 American troops stationed in Europe and the White House focused on a military campaign in Iran, Washington's primary strategic and diplomatic bandwidth is heavily concentrated outside of Asia. The Chinese leadership feels relieved by this shift. The focus on Europe and the Middle East grants Beijing more room to operate in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait, without immediate, concentrated pressure from the U.S. military. Alienated allies, sensing this American retreat, are beginning to seek new diplomatic anchors to maintain global stability. This shift is already visible in high-level diplomacy. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez recently visited Beijing to ask China to play a larger role in peace brokering, a move observers called a direct snub to U.S. leadership. In an era of high uncertainty, China's ability to project an image of stability makes it an attractive partner for middle powers who feel they can no longer rely on Washington. When the U.S. withdrew from the Paris Climate Accords, the World Health Organization, and the World Food Program, it left significant leadership gaps in international governance. Many European nations continue to view climate change and global health as priority issues, creating a demand for a global coordinator that the U.S. is no longer willing to meet. China has responded by signing a new climate and nature partnership with the UK and a memorandum with Finland to expand cooperation in clean energy and technology. By positioning itself as a leader in these institutions, China gains geopolitical influence without the massive costs associated with maintaining a global military presence. As the U.S. threatens reciprocal tariffs on nearly all imports, China is framing itself as the global alternative by keeping its own markets open to foreign trade. This data shows China's dominance in critical sectors. They currently control the vast majority of the supply chains for rare earths, electric vehicle batteries, and solar components, making them an unavoidable partner for any nation pursuing a green energy transition. The European Union is wary of this reliance and has introduced the Industrial Accelerator Act to counter Chinese overcapacity. Beijing has already warned that it will retaliate if these provisions are used to hurt Chinese interests. However, Chinese industry is already physically integrated into the continent. Facilities like the CATL battery plant in Germany show that China has embedded its technology directly into the European industrial heartland. Even with high trade tensions, China's scale as a manufacturer makes it a necessary economic anchor for a Europe that can no longer assume open trade with the United States. Western analysts often assume China wants to replace the U.S. as the world's sole superpower, but that role comes with expensive security obligations that Beijing has shown little interest in adopting. Instead, the Chinese leadership envisions a multipolar world, framing themselves as a multilateral anchor where middle powers act independently. Leveraging frustration toward America First policies, Beijing encourages these nations to define their own interests rather than following Washington's lead. China's strategy succeeds if it simply breaks the habit of global alignment with the United States, creating a more fragmented world order.
Although many of these U.S. threats, like the full withdrawal from NATO, may never fully happen, the mere possibility of them has already changed the behavior of allies. National governments now view de-risking their economies and security from U.S. volatility as a standard component of long-term planning. Beijing finds its greatest strategic gain in the slow, steady dismantling of the post-World War II order, as this fracturing becomes a normalized feature of global politics.